Last time we left you in regards to, of course, Labour's big win with Tamworth and Mid Bedfordshire, I had told you that there would be an inpouring, most probably of conservative coping and seething, and of course, the main place of this would be, of course, Conservative Home, Twitter as well. There's lots of interesting comments coming out from many Conservatives talking about a quote change of direction needed urgently, but of course, Rishi Sunak not probably about to provide that U-turn I think many Conservatives are hoping for, but prior to this, because I think there's still, shall we say, a lot of the big, juicier blogs about this to come forward, we're going to go over not the actual blog, but the comments. Because I have alluded to this before, that the comments in some of the Conservative Home articles are just as fascinating as honestly the comedy value that is provided by Conservative Home itself. One of the interesting things, and I will say this now, is remember, if you want to comment on Conservative Home, you have to go through this massive rigmarole to be able to comment. Even I, who visits Conservative Home frequently just for the lols, I don't have an account on here. So to have an account and to really comment on here, these people are actually dedicated, and I really do believe people who follow the Conservative Party. Now, there might be a few trolls, of course, they do slip through the cracks, but we're going to have a look at their comments because this shows you, I think, the depths of despair, disillusionment, coping in some cases that is currently going on in the Conservative Party, just to show you how bad things are in their, in the people who would normally vote for them. There's quite a few interesting ones in particular, but before we go diving into those, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and an notification link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. Like I say, there is the YouTube Pony Club and of course the YouTube thank you button as well. So let's crack on into these comments section because, oh my word. And just quickly, this is all, of course, going over the by-election, saying how bad it is. He's even realigned his position. He said that remember, this kid comes from Paul Goodman. He's the main writer for Conservative Home. His original estimation was to have at the next election was between a Conservative majority of about 10 and a Labour one of about 50. So up until this point, that was his view, that somehow there was a very narrow gap where the Conservatives would have had a very narrow majority of about 10. This is what he says now. This now apparently pushes his range from no Conservative majority to a Labour one of 60 or so. I like how he just says, "Oh, I don't think we'll have a majority at all, but Labour, oh yeah, I'll give them about 10 extra seats." No, I don't think there's a single poll expert based on these results, if they were to go into a general election based on these results, would agree that Labour would probably come out with about 60 or so. Don't get me wrong, that would be a really good win, but I don't think, given the way things are going, it's going to be like that. But at least he does say that Sunak is on course to win. Starmer is on course to win. So here's the first one. This is, again, like I say, these are the comments in here. So here's the first one. Here's the cold hard truth. The Conservative Party are offering nothing to get natural Conservative voters out of their homes to vote for. Once again, continuing on the policy that we've been seeing since the news broke. Oh, it's just turnout. Conservative voters, they're just staying at home. It was too cold for them to come out to vote in a troublesome by-election, they just decided to stay home. Whatever helps them sleep at night, I suppose. But it continues. The policy of look and be scared of the Labour Party is failing. The policy of focusing on minute issues such as the gender wars is failing. The vote for us, we will do nothing is failing. There is no positive record to stand on. The country and public services is crumbling. For nearly 12 years, this country could have borrowed at nearly 0% to help rebuild the public sector, from social housing to new schools and hospitals. The Conservative governments did nothing other than pee it all up the wall on one project, HS2. Again, disagree with that on him for that. HS2 was not money being peed up the wall. Like I say, the Conservative government could have done HS2 and build all that social housing, schools, hospitals, and other infrastructure projects, as well as build HS2. But there you go. Also disagree with him on his next part, where he goes, we need nuclear power stations around our coast. Why do we need nuclear power stations around our coast? You only really need, I think, 3 nuclear power stations to help with the transition cost. We've been through this before. And recycling plants for fuel rods, like in France, to become self-sufficient for energy needs and to help decarbonize. Yet nothing. We have a say. We have a say everything. Do nothing. Conservative government. I, for one, cannot see myself voting Conservatives while we have such a disastrous, blinkered party leadership. Yeah, not a very good view of the Conservative Party from someone who is a Conservative supporter there, as you can see. Next one. It's a reasonably safe bet that Labour will win the next election, if only because of the Scottish seats they are going to pick up. What about the seats down south? Never mind. Yeah, it's just the Scottish seats they're going to pick up. However, a year is a long time in politics, and if by October of next year the economy is looking better and there's been some progress on immigration and Labour policies of tax and spending has been exposed for the tosh that it always is, it's not. The policies always do tend out to be pretty good because you're spending tax to get something positive. Then there you go. But anyway, he continues, then all is not lost. Very doubtful, to be honest, on all that. It is obvious that in the recent by-elections, many Conservative voters have been sitting on their hands, and a high turnout will bring a different story. If I was to take a bet now, it would be on a small Labour majority or a hung parliament. I doubt it is going to be a small Labour majority or even a hung parliament at this point. Based on these polls, that ain't happening at all. Based on this by-election, that ain't happening at all. Is Rishi Sunak going to be able to turn it around by next October? I doubt it. Remember, he was meant to have turned everything around just this time last year. Has he done that? No, he hasn't. He's absolutely failed. Next one. These low voter counts is just past conservative voters staying at home, ? There is no guarantee that they will actually come out of their homes at a general election, of course, unless there is a positive reason to do so. The other thing that people are on about is the Tamworth Conservative candidate, Andrew Cooper, made an absolute swift exit as soon as he announced he'd lost. 5 minutes and he left. With someone writing, it's not a good look. Who knows? Perhaps the Tories dodged a bullet. I get the feeling he may not be the candidate this time next year. Next one. I'm afraid it has to admit that the recent conference was quite simply a disaster. Most people think the country has huge problems with housing shortages, NHS, and immigration, and the cost of living. Much of the cost of living issues would be reduced if the housing was not in such short supply, unsatisfactory condition, and expensive. Instead, the final speech focused on cutting infrastructure and replacement projects completely lacked substance. Reducing smoking, tinkering with education. No wonder people will walk and vote elsewhere if this is the best on offer. As I said, the conference did not go down well. And more specifically, this person is referring to Rishi Sunak's speech. That did not go down well, even amongst Conservative voters. But they finish off with, we need visionary policies to address these big issues so that people can actually believe and regain trust in the Conservative Party is on the side of everyone. Certainly not on the side of everyone. That'll be a big disagreement from me. At the moment, such trust and belief is lost in nearly all levels except in a very few small groups. Simple fact, abandon Conservative policies and you will be defeated. And someone else responded, that's what voting through a policy that makes your country less economically and diplomatically worse off, less able to control its borders, will do to a party, then yes. Wonder what policy they're referring to there. Oh, yes, this was also the other one I wanted to go over. So, Labour majority of 60 or so, or the also meaning anything from 60 to 260. I've been claiming for some time that in 2023, it will be important a date in history of the 21st century as politics was in 1922, was politics of the 20th century. This is the year zero. Everything starts from today. To add insult to injury, I believe also deeply the Conservative Worcestershire in the Greens have taken 2 county council seats from the Tories. Again, that's not been talked about, but also not good if that's also happened there. This one was also an interesting one. It also sparked an interesting conversation. So this starts with this gone. So the Conservative Party has become its far-right nasty incarnation again, which never achieves anything and never proposes realistic solutions. Interesting admission from someone writing on Conservative Home, one of the biggest, UK conservative news sites. Here, interesting. Instead of telling poor people to F off, the party should be asking, why do we have poor people in a rich country? And what can we do to change that and offer hope? Yeah, the Conservative Party at the moment not going to interest that. Never going to even examine asking for that. I have to ask this person, are you really in the right party? So, instead, the party says the opposite. And as more people find themselves or family members affected by economic difficulty, the party finds itself contending a larger and larger group of people. When you're growing up with children who can't afford to buy or rent a property, despite working full time, the party is saying that young people are wasters, or then a larger demographic group that supports environmental politics, and then you trash them. Don't be surprised if people don't vote for you. Again, have to really ask, Jason, are you really in the right party? If this is your general attitude, I generally have to ask, are you in the right party at this moment in time? I don't think you are. The Conservative Party has not come up with one intelligent, forward-thinking policy in years, and because of that, it has less and less to offer. Middle-class voters in southern constituencies voted to remain and have been repeatedly insulted and told that they are Ramonas. New Tory voters in the north were told that they would get extra investment and new high-speed rail links. And then Sunak was recorded saying that he had diverted money from the north to Tunbridge Wells, and HS2, along with most of the levelling up, was cancelled. The small boats hysteria is built on a falsehood. Because 90% of people arriving by small boats are guaranteed to leave to remain, and anyone outside of the far right can see that. And the fact that claims are not processed demolishes the myth that the Conservatives bring effective managers. I have to say, this guy's doing a good job. And then to question, are things better now they were in 2010? The answer for the majority of the population is no. I have to say, wow. Wow. That coming from someone, bear in mind, that does not sound like a conservative. If I were to read that to you, and bear in mind, you wouldn't know to where the source of that comment came from, that would not sound like a conservative. That would not sound like a conservative at all. But just goes to show you the sheer depths, the disillusionment, the fact that, as we said, Cameron brought the party back from its far rightness into a more right centrist party. And a lot of people who were centrists joined that particular Conservative Party. Now it's gone careering back to its far right. And probably people like this guy are like, this isn't the party I joined. I don't recognize this party. You've got Rory Stewart himself who said, I think he said on, I think it was Politics Joe, I think did an interview with him, and he said, I just had enough. They weren't doing anything. It'd become an absolute disaster zone. I drew the line at Boris Johnson. Fascinating, interesting, and we'll have to go over at some point, because we'll have to go over their interview that they did with Theresa May. That's fascinating. Fascinating. But anyway, like I say, this comment did start an interesting conversation. So that was Jason. Then Rick replies with, environmental policies are causing economic damage. The Tories should be asking the question, how can we become a richer country, not how can we redistribute the nation's wealth? First of all, environmental policies are not causing any economic damage. Sorry, they are not. That is a right-wing lie. The other thing is, how can you become a richer country, not redistribute the wealth? Well, maybe you need to. Maybe you need to at this point. All I'm going to say, Rick. Then he continues. They are conservatives after all, and it sounds like you want them to become left-wing. The EU is struggling with growth, and it's not an answer for creating more wealth for the masses. It seems to be in our 40-year history of being in the EU, it seems to certainly have been the case. But there you go. You continue. People haven't been made poorer due to Brexit due to Brexit. Wages have stagnated for the past 2 decades, and inflation is a result of lockdowns and geopolitical instability. Yes, Brexit has nothing to do with it. You keep on living that delusion, my friend. And while, of course, yes, inflation does have a role to play, inflation, unfortunately, not the result of these lockdowns. Inflation falling everywhere else doesn't seem to be really doing any well here. Not only that, but growth is not the best metric to measure how good a country is doing. You go over to Europe, they have higher wages, better standards of living, better standards of pretty much everything else compared to someone of equivalent in the UK. That's the fact. And a lot of people have asked this before, that we were becoming more and more European. This is what Nigel Farage and the rest of these hard right Tories have wanted, to pull us away from becoming more European, because they don't like it. But anyway, you can continue. Or Rick continues in his comment. He says, the fact that anyone but the far left can recognize that nobody is turning up on a boat from France should be allowed to stay in this country, and that's a major breach of the social contract to allow them to do so. There's no social contract there, my friend. There you go. And of course, you look down upon as Ramonas. You want the country to, quote, stop existing as an independent nation state for limited economic reasons. Yeah, quote, limited. That's not true at all. Limited economic reasons. This Tory government are not even right-wing by any measure. Uh, and then someone else puts, uh, couldn't agree more. Again, of course, this is a response to the top comment. Couldn't agree more. As a One Nation conservative myself, I feel the party has done nothing for the country or given a single thought to future generations. You reap what you sow. Someone, SW Local, says, how ridiculous to say the party has become far right. Its political agenda is largely the same as our opponents. Again, not true. Someone else coping on here. In both seats, the Reform vote was more than majority gained by Labour. Reform voters are Conservatives, completely fed up of being polite here with the Conservative government. Myself, I've been a Conservative supporter and activist all my long life, but I'm attracted by reform. I, I passionately believe in the effectiveness of true Conservative policies for everyone, but I, like so many organisations in the UK today, the party has gradually been infiltrated by well-meaning non-believers. The party I love has been stolen. I want to get it back. Again, that's the message Reform are peddling. That's the message that Priti Patel and Karunas are trying to peddle as well, that these people aren't true conservatives. Oh, dear. Someone else, Luke and Gray. The most important figures in by-elections are swing and turnout. The swing is irrelevant. It's the vote moment between the parties that is the relevant, and there isn't any. What we've had is the end game of demoralizing policies staffed by non-entities, by blinkered fanatics who go out and vote and everyone stays at home. Paint a wall and watchers let it dry. It was a deliberate strategy. Fund clueless losers and target the gullible with messaging. With those with the biggest fan base wins. Works for pop groups. Why not national politics? Sorry, but swing does actually matter in a by-election. History has played that out more than enough times, but there you go. And this is it. Simon, PM has got to go. A new leadership election will be excruciating and unpopular and must be truncated. But keeping Sunak will also be excruciating and unpopular, with the added demerit of Sunak's terrible leadership and getting Hunt as a 2-for-1. Even if its defeat is unavoidable, there is still time for the Tories to show that they can at least address the issues of today. Rather than chuntering on about maths until 18 and smoking, Sunak even got a chance to rest. His green delays, the brainchild of Cummings, apparently, gave a clear poll bounce. It really didn't, but there you go. And he could and should have gone and followed through that with a clear set of pro-business and pro-British energy policies aimed at getting bills down. He didn't. He reverted to type. Blowing that opportunity is really the last straw. It's long past time that he went. So let's respond to that. First of all those green policies, that ambitiousness that was set out was going to deliver that. Those were pro-British, pro-energy policies that would have got the bills down. If the Conservatives had done this back in the days of David Cameron, and David Cameron not, given in to the same anti-green people that, Sunak's, given into now, we would have had offshore, onshore wind farms. We wouldn't be in as bad a state this winter as we are probably about to go in. Same for last winter as well. And then, of course, you've got someone replies to that, Ghost of McLeod, who says, fine, get rid of him if you want, but who do you replace him with? And that, my friend, is the $15 million question. Leave it to the membership and they will probably choose another barking ideologue or lying populist. Wow, you certainly have a very low estimate of your fellow Conservative voters. Oh, sorry, not just your fellow Conservative voters, your fellow Conservative Party members. And the wider electorate will not stand for another bout of self-indulgent Conservative infighting. We have to make the best of what we have and steer clear of stupid culture war campaigning. Interesting that this keeps on continuing popping up, because I've said this before, and even the Conservatives are realizing this culture war stuff has not translated well from America to here. It's interesting that even people in the Conservative Party are saying that. The mid-bed swing to Labour may not have been as large as some in the past, but that is because the LDs and Labour could not decide who was best to actually oppose us. If the Lib Dems had not campaigned seriously, then the swing to Labour would have been much larger. That is very true. Someone else replies, Peter, excruciating and unpopular, the polar opposite of the concerns of the electorate. Disaster upon disaster if it happens. Simon, as I said, no more excruciatingly unpopular than keeping Sunak and Hunt. The concerns of the electorate are the cost of living, the economy, the NHS, and immigration. It's not immigration at all. Like I say, Conservatives are obsessed with the idea that immigration is actually meant to be a big issue. If you poll voters, it's really not. It's cost of living, economy, NHS. Even the environment is higher on people's priorities than immigration. But there you go. If the current leadership was so successful in tackling any of those issues, we wouldn't need to get rid of them. They aren't. So do we and go for a general election with these jokers? Someone replies, he will not go. Sadly, I suspect that's true. Others must step in. Oh, someone else, William Kelso. A difficult day for our party. Voters use by-elections to send a message to the government that they are not happy, but they will vote differently in a GE. And as someone else said, why would that be the case? I think that's a valid question to ask. These trends show up time and time and again. This was a protest vote aimed at the government, not an endorsement of Labour. Sunak will need to find a way to turn things around. If he does not have much time, he shall not have my vote. He's already had a year practically at this point to turn things around. He really hasn't done this. Nicholas Jackson comes in. This one, nothing to do with Rishi. He inherited an impossible job. All to do with the weakness of May. My God, imagine being so delusional that you blame Theresa May. The perpetual lies of Johnson, the lunacy of Truss, and the constant failure to deliver anything meaningful post-Brexit. Well, Sunak's part of that failure too. He's part of that failure too. He was played a big part of the Johnson government. He is not blameless. The boats still roll in. HS2 should have been scrapped. No, it shouldn't. No leveling up. Pandering to the eco warriors. The list is endless. I'm a Tory party member, and I have still voted Tory all my life for 65 years. Not anymore. I will vote tactically to ensure the biggest, bloodiest nose possible for my Tory MP. The party, though thoroughly deserve it, they are so far out of touch with Middle England that they will be obliterated by Labour, and that will make or break them. Maybe the party will finally realise how much it needs to change. Again, someone says, nothing to do with Rishi. Remind me again who has been leader for the past year. And someone else, and the Chancellor before that. Oh. Where else? Well, the other good ones. Hi, someone calling out Goodman, the guy who wrote the article at the top beneath these comments. Dear Mr. Goodman, you clearly have a good knowledge and thought and understanding of politics. Yet your support for Mr. Sunak, when results like this from his leadership and policies have been so obvious for well over a year. What on earth were you expecting? Everything has happened as you were told many times, yet you encourage this outcome. Why? Someone else replied, best post of the day. Goodman's craven support for Sunak is becoming more bizarre by the day. Someone else here. The Conservatives were elected with an 80-seat majority to transform the country. Instead, they've transformed the Conservative Party into nothing. Why did Sunak expend so much political capital in destroying the PM who won the majority simply to occupy the chair as a manager rather than a political leader such to have on his CV? This disastrous by-elections results should be expected as a just judgment on this government, which either does nothing or whether it does something. It is the opposite to what the Conservative administration should do. Sunak did not expend any capital destroying Johnson. Johnson destroyed himself by lack of seriousness, lack of honesty, lack of decency, and a lack of interest in anything except what took his fancy at that given moment. He responds, all Sunak has to do is wait for the committee report. Moreover, Johnson's lies fade compared to the complete failure to do anything useful. I'll take a lying politician if they actually do something for the public good. That's desperation, of course, but this is where we are as a country. Oh. Boothsy says, it's amazing that the number of people who still believe that the answer to our problems is to move even further to the right. Wow. What have we been saying? One of the big problems of the Conservative Party is that every time they do something or something happens, they just think, oh, well, we've got to move further right. We've got to move further right. We've got to double down on being more further right. They don't stop for a second to look at, is it their ideology that's wrong? Or maybe they could do something different. But that's how in depth they are to their own ideology. They daren't even turn away from it. This is why I call them free marxist fundamentalist zealots all the time. So here we are. So when it should be painfully obvious to anyone that the only way to win a general election is to appeal to the middle ground. We won an 80-seat majority because Corbyn pushed a hard left agenda, and now it looks like we'll gift the election to Starmer by trying to win over the ideologues on the right. Rick replies, it's not one over ideologies, it's motivate your voters. I voted for the Conservatives, not the Lib Dems, and I certainly didn't vote to ban smoking. People voted for a right-wing party. It's worth attempting to be right-wing and do things that those people might like and will get if they say good things about the party, volunteer, etc. Like with movies or anything else, you need a motivated core to generate the hype. Right now, most right-wing partisans hate the Tories. The middle ground is a vague concept that really doesn't exist. It's far too simplistic view of politics. If you make the pitch to voters that we can't afford to adopt economically damaging green policies, you can start to move the perception of the middle ground on the issue. Except when you ask these people, why are these green policies economically damaging, when you can go right now out there and ask businesses about what they are doing about becoming more green, because they are finding it very economically beneficial to them to becoming green. And of course, the response to that, we won a majority of seats because a lot of Labour voters didn't want Corbyn or momentum. Even the Labour Party voters knew what they're looking at. Dr. Robert, I found it strange how Sunak is so terrible at elections, yet everyone in the Tories seems to protect him. If Boris had lost all these seats, he would have been kicked out. Timing as much as anything else. If there was an obviously better candidate for the Conservative leader to have yet another leadership change after the last 2 years and only around a year out to go after a general election, it would be inexcusable given that the PM actually has a serious job to do. And it's by no means the case that these by-elections are all about Rishi Sunak personally. They are obviously a deeper reflection of the disillusionment in Conservative voters so that they may stay at home. Dr. Robert replies, I think it's more than that. I think both Labour and the Tories allow each other around 10 years. Tory insiders aren't getting rid of Sunak because they've agreed it's Labour's turn. Yes, the Budgeon's turn view exists under first past the post. But then there is a narrative that Labour should now also go and get at it. But I think that we need to scrutinise more closely what a Labour government would do, not just give them a turn by default. I want the Conservatives to step up and do better, not just hope and let inadequate Labour leader in without any real challenge. This is a good one from Martin. The traditional ministerial turd polishing that happens after every by-election disaster needs to end. All it does is cause otherwise sensible people to want to throw things at the television. A bad by-election defeat is exactly what it is, and pretending it otherwise is utterly stupid. We need to call the media out for its obsession with sensationalization. Reporting the news is one thing. Manipulating the detail to make things seem worse than they really are is having as much of a bad impact on the public opinion of politics as the conduct of politicians. The Conservatives are in a mess. One of the messages from this morning was if we stick to the 5 pledges, we'll be fine. That was not what a lot of people were saying. We won't. People want to see ambition and drive from a government. They do little to make people think that their lives will be better, either financially or overall quality. If the Conservatives are going to go through the same cycle, centre ground politics, win elections, only for the right to take control and destroy the work that has been done. It happened under Major. It blighted Cameron. And ever since then, the right has gotten stronger and stronger to the point where one nationalism has all but been driven out of the party. It is a lack of compassion that accompanies this, which is killing the party. It is time for the One Nation group of MPs to start flexing its muscles instead of just sulking in the background and occasionally whimpering. It needs to actively start blocking votes in Parliament that keep the government to the right, in the same way that the ERG did. I could go on, but the sooner PR happens and the country gets a proper, dedicated, one nationalist party, the better. Someone replies, PR is not the solution. In fact, it would cause even more chaos in Parliament. Until your last paragraph, I completely agreed with you. The problem is that one nationalisms have largely dictated policies over the last 13 years. This is why the party is doing so badly now. It is basically the Lib Dems with a blue rosette. It's called the Liberal Democrats. Someone else here. Greg Hand is blaming everyone else except his leader and his cabal. It's better to look for a job anyway away from politics. The question is, who will employ Sunak as chief of staff? Liam Booth Smith, after his loss, ousted by in a GE. See if there's any more good ones. Someone from Warren. Just think how different the result might have been if the government was actually being led by actual conservatives instead of a bunch of neo-socialists. Oh my. Oh, yeah, that's it so far. But yeah, wow. All I can say is wow. If those are the comments from people who are members of the Conservative Party, yeah, that does not look good. That does not look good for them. And oh my word, we're not even started yet because next you're gonna get the infighting, you're gonna get the blogs saying how Rishi Sunak could turn this around or what Rishi Sunak's doing wrong and how my ideas would be better than Sunak. So if Sunak only did what I told him to, we wouldn't be in this situation. Oh, the finger wagging that's about to take place is going to be unbelievable and it's going to be delicious. Every single moment of it. Oh. But as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.